Hey, in this episode, I have my buddy and business partner, Bobby Brennan, on, and we're talking about advice we would give to franchise buyers. As a buyer, we both bought franchises, and we know a lot on the inside of franchising, at Front Street Equity Partners and just different brands we've been a part of, and have friends on the inside. So we know a lot, and we broke down like what a franchise buyer, should be aware of and why they are at a disadvantage always when buying a franchise. And starting from that point, how do you get to the point where you buy a franchise or a business or really invest in anything? But I think you'll enjoy this episode with my buddy Bobby.
Representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Von Horn.
Bobby, welcome back. Good to see you again.
Likewise, Erik. Thanks for having me.
This is zero prep, pretty much as usual. You said, hey, what do we talk about? I said, everything that's in your brain, franchise development. I was actually thinking in the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, there's been a lot of activity around buyers. And so let's just talk about buyers, not from the franchisor's perspective, but from the buyer perspective. Because a lot of these, let's face it, buyers go into buying a franchise and they're kind of at a disadvantage. Franchisors know everything. Buyers hardly know anything. And there's not a lot of really good information out there for the buyers. I've got a list of validation questions that helps a little bit, but there's no real good way that buyers are armed to go into buying a franchise or really any business they don't have a ton of education. So let's help some buyers out today. Do you have any place you'd like to start with that, or do you want me to start peppering you with questions?
No, that's such a great question because I agree with you 100%, Erik, especially like if I think about myself or friends or family members going into this, knowing what I know now, you're at a disadvantage. It's like the NFL. Offense always has the advantage. Defense has to somehow figure out how to do it. But I think some of the things I would recommend if a friend or family member came to me, I always like to think of it that way, is, really just take your time. There's going to be a lot of opportunities that come your way. And I would strongly encourage people to look at multiple concepts. Don't just zero in on one. Even if you might think, hey, I really know what brand I want to look at other things, because you may uncover pieces of their business, how they operate, their infrastructure, resources to the franchisees that you didn't even know were an option. So it just kind of broadens your horizon. So look at multiple concepts. And also, salespeople are pretty good. Trust but verify. I tell everyone, during our process, my job is I'm the salesperson. Whatever I'm telling you, your job is to verify that through either the franchisor or the franchisees themselves, because a good franchise development team, a group that's doing it right, they are in constant communications with operations. Realistically, you gotta take a second and realize there's an opportunity for you to just focus on the process and really make sure, number one, you know what you're getting yourself into. Do research, take your time. But number two, you're going to do your research. You're going to take your time. You're going to look at multiple concepts. But three, go into the process and verify. A great sales and operations franchisor will talk. Bad ones don't talk. And what that means is, as a franchisor, especially an emerging brand. So if you guys are looking at a hyper growing franchise or that's growing fast, make sure the sales and operations team are saying the same thing. Because if they're not, there's going to be a disconnect from what you're sold to what operations can actually produce.
I'm going to stop you right there. You said there's a difference between sales and operations. And I was just talking with someone in a private conversation who has access to all kinds of data based on the business that they're in, and they understand profitability of franchisees. They have access to data. We didn't get into any specifics or anything like that because we can't, but they have access to data. And I was peppering this person with questions, and I'm like, what's hot out there? And I'm like, wait a second. I'm not meaning what's hot, what's selling a ton. Like, what's hot? Meaning franchisees are making a lot of money and they are going to make a lot of money in the years ahead. And he said, and he was like, Erik, this one particular industry is hot right now, meaning the franchisees will get into it. Year one looks amazing because they are doing amazing year number one. Year number two is kind of flat from year number one, and year number three, it kind of falls off. And so I'm like, that's interesting. And he said, which, you're probably thinking, that's deja vu of frozen yogurt, a number of years ago. Frozen yogurt back in the day, if you were to validate with first-year franchisees, you'd be like, holy cow, they made this much money their first year. This is amazing. Their second year obviously is going to do way better, until you realize second year in most frozen yogurt did not do better. And the third year, they were trying to just sell them for whatever they could get out of them. That was not every brand, not every location, but that was kind of what's known in the industry is like, that's typically frozen yogurt. There are industries today that are following that same model. And you and I haven't even talked about this. I'll share that with you later. But this person has data and they can see it and they see what the trends are. And I'm like, that will never be a Front Street industry or type. We're not going to be talking to brands in that industry because we can see how that ends up playing out. But as soon as I said to him, what are the hot ones? I said, I don't mean hot by how many franchises they're selling. I mean hot by their franchisees are so happy because they're making a lot of money. And he laughed. He's like, yes, that's what we look for. And so
there's a difference. There's a big difference.
Are looking, huge difference. And that's what you just said. Like, so if a franchise is considered hot right now, don't automatically think that's a great brand to buy. It doesn't mean it's not, but because it's on some list or getting attention or whatever, that don't assume that means happy, profitable, successful franchisees. Assume like you need to dig deeper and what does the longevity of that look like? And then, like you said, operations. And so I thought that was brilliant what you said. Make sure sales and ops, like, are they saying the same thing? It's the same excitement in the ops team that is in the sales team. They might not have that same level of excitement, right?
No, you hit the nail on the head. And especially there's another topic of like, what about the carbon copy of the next lookalike franchise or the next in line in the same category? There's pros and cons to those as well too. But I think, to your point, those brands that are growing exponentially, in my opinion, sometimes I've been a part of those and sometimes it's been great, but other times you get the worst of both worlds. You get a brand that's growing almost too fast and sales and operations aren't talking. So now sales is still selling what the model was supposed to be 6 months, a year ago. And these franchisees aren't even open. And the model has changed so substantially that you get franchisees with missed expectations. And I was talking to a franchisee in another system just yesterday. They sent me a referral and they made the comment of they bought into another franchise concept. And they said, hey, I wanted to thank you. And, this is me tooting my own horn, but like you set realistic expectations, and I tell people, in franchise development, if they're not trying to scare you off a little bit, like if they're selling you sunshine, rainbows, and puppy dogs, the dog's got fleas somewhere. Find out what those fleas are. It doesn't mean don't buy the franchise. Just have realistic expectations. And if somebody wants to get into a business for year one, I'm going to replace my 6-figure or whatever the income may be, it may not be the right fit for a franchise. A franchise is a business. You're starting a business. No one starts a business with year one, I'm going to hit this much revenue. Think about it from the year 3, 5, 10, if it's a 10-year franchise agreement. And then you have an asset that you've built. If it's a profitable business, then you can potentially sell it for a multiple of your EBITDA or even potential sales. So think of it that way too. So just because something may have lower margins or even higher royalty doesn't mean it's not as sexy as the other brand that's the hot selling one that maybe, has different numbers, but you can't just compare things apples to apples. Our partner Jeff Herr likes to say it's like comparing apples to bowling balls. The FTDs might look similar, but like we've been in this business long enough, Erik, you have, and many people know, like the FTD is a great tool. It is a sales tool for the franchisor. As a franchisee, you need to validate, does that meet the requirements? And just because this franchisee is making a ton of money or this franchise is losing money, that is not a deal breaker or a reason for me to buy. I want to know, why are they successful? What are they doing to make themselves successful. And what's this person doing that's not successful? Or is there a difference in resources? I will tell you 99% of the time in my experience, the difference between the top performer and those in the middle or the bottom, it's never resources, it's resourcefulness. Are they being resourceful with the tools and things they have? Are they executing the playbook at a high level? The local execution and the resourcefulness is really the biggest variable. So it's easy to get drunk on, well, they're great top performers or the numbers look like this. That has nothing to do with me. It may be an indicator, and you got to make sure that that's going to be a fit for you.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are two really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisee and you want to be around a community of successful Zs and other brands and in other industries, this is why I created the Franchisee Mastermind. If you want access to the best single and multi-unit owners to know what they're doing, or if you want to be around other multi-brand owners, then you'll want to check out my Franchisee Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections, to each other. They want a shortcut success, both short-term and long-term. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com. I was on Twitter looking at a friend, and he's a franchisor, doing very well with his brand, and probably going to start another brand here before long. But he was talking about one of the things that, and I'm not going to name the brand, because if I name the brand, all you guys listening will go out and buy it, and he will make way too much money because of that. So we can't, he's not that good of a friend. Definitely not that good of a friend. But he made a comment like, great franchisors, which is what he wants to be, as a great franchisor, which I admire. I've got a number of friends like that on Twitter, so don't assume you know who it is. But he was mentioning something about, franchisors that are very upfront with what it looks like to be a franchisee, especially that first year. And I think that's real common. It's easy for franchisors to kind of skirt around the work that's involved that first year, maybe the first 2 years or whatever it is, that particular model. But especially if they're claiming to be more semi-absentee or, just not an owner operator, more of an executive model, what does that first year really look like? Because we know with our brands, Bobby, we are always harping great grand openings. You got to have very strong grand openings, because that's what leads to having a strong first year, which allows you to scale to multiple units and whatnot in years beyond that. But it starts with the grand opening. I think if franchisors bring on franchisees with the wrong expectation that you're going to work 10 hours a week and you can just kind of manage it, and the owner's not really that involved that first year, they are setting themselves up for a weak operator and probably not a multi-unit franchisee, and probably not that successful of a franchisee. And so I appreciated him saying, you know what, we as a franchisor are going to be very upfront on what it looks like that first year. And I see more brands that are starting to do that. They're kind of more upfront on the work that it actually takes. Because for a while, it seemed the big buzzword, and I'm a big fan of the buzzword, semi-absentee, because those are the types of businesses that I'd like to be an investor in. But I know for a semi-absentee business to be really good, I need to have a really good owner-operator in there, and I will rather be an investor versus an owner-operator. But even those semi-absentee businesses, Bobby, the more that the owner's involved on building it and scaling it, the better that thing is going to do. What have you seen around like expectation setting in that first year?
Well, first of all, I think semi-absentee is a naughty word in my franchise language, because I think it gives the wrong expectation. And we know what that means. Semi-absentee means I'm not running the day-to-day. I'm hiring somebody and putting them in place. But a lot of people confuse that with a part-time job. Hey, this is 10, 15 hours a week. It's a side hustle. No franchise that I'm aware of is a side hustle. It is a business, and you need to treat it as such. So again, to your point of setting expectations, I think, emerging brands, sometimes they don't know, and they just, they want to sell what they think the idea of what it really is going to be, maybe 5-10 years down the road, versus what it is today. And so we try to set expectations at Front Street of, we use the executive model. I don't use the word semi-absentee, or I use it synonymously with executive model, meaning you're the CEO. I know plenty of CEOs that play golf 40 hours a week, and they put in their 20 hours in the actual boardrooms. And I know other ones that work 80 hours a week. It is going to be dependent on your leadership style. How much time do you want to put in? How much money do you want to make? Because I can promise you, those top producers are, at least in the beginning, much more heavily involved. Then you can scale back. You can't do it the other way around and start out, hands off, and then have to get into the business, because at that point it's too late. So I think these emerging brands, a lot of them do a good job if they work with some of these FSOs. It really depends. It depends on the brand. It depends on the salesperson. So there's a lot of variables. If you're a buyer, how do I really, understand, or am I being told the truth? But ask them the tough questions. And if they can't be open and honest with you about, here's the challenge. Like, our business models, we love simple. Simple is not synonymous with easy. Let me rephrase that.
Exactly
simple is not easy. We ask questions, and I tell people, do you have the stomach for business ownership? And, those of you who are Simon Sinek fans, I always start with why. What's your why? Like, not, if you just want to make money, probably not going to be the right fit for us. We need some conviction of why they want to participate with that particular franchise industry or category, or they align with the values or the mission of the organization, because just wanting to make money is not enough. It can be. But for emerging brands that are still kind of building the plane as they're flying it a lot of times, and I consider anything emerging under 100 units in my instance. So anything other than that, you've got to really have some conviction behind the brand, and something that really aligns, whether it's the founder, you have some personal experience. But again, ask the tough questions, make sure you get those answers as a buyer, and evaluate other concepts, because you'll find there's a lot of great franchise development people that will be very open. And the good ones know they don't want to waste your time. They don't want to waste their own, because they have enough leads to go after. So they won't drag you out, and they're not desperate. The other thing, and this sounds counterintuitive, Erik, but one of the other things I look for in a strong brand, and again, some people vehemently disagree, is I don't like franchise concepts that are wheeling and dealing. To me, they don't have enough conviction in their brand. And if they're trying to negotiate all these things, my mind always goes to, what are they going to negotiate for the next franchisee and the next? And then they really don't have that much proof in the pudding. And so maybe, like, do I really want to be a part of that brand? And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but I also don't want to owe anyone anything. So I want to kind of be on a level playing field. But those are just a couple small things that I think make a big difference as you go into it. Look at a couple different brands, make sure sales and operations are on the same page. Ask the ops people, if you go through these, or if you're on leadership calls or you're at confirmation day, pull the ops people aside. And that's why at Front Street, we love folks. Our sales team all has ops experience, because they understand that, there's a saying in franchising, the sales team gets to make the baby, the operations team has to raise them. And they have to do the hard part, but those good sales teams will make sure that sales and operations are talking. And operations and a good franchisor in general will make sure that there's some cross-training collaboration. So there are not missed expectations, because you could have a great franchisee making a lot of money, and they're completely unhappy because they were just sold the wrong dream. The hustle is sold separately, but you got to get in there and work. And we just want to make sure that for long-term success for the franchisee and the franchisor, there has to be that mutual alignment, versus the salesperson selling it and saying, see you guys later, see you never. I'm going to go sell the next unit to the next franchise partner.
Let's talk about our brands just in 30 seconds. Our brand, just so people, and we keep talking about our brands, there are portfolio brands at Front Street Equity Partners. One of them is called Go Glow. That is how would you describe Go Glow in 3 sentences?
So 3, I can't do anything in 3 sentences.
Or 2 or 5, whatever you want, man. Just hurry up, would you?
Go Glow is revolutionizing the way we look at the sunless tanning, the custom spray tanning category. And we are at the intersection of skincare, routine, and makeup. So patent pending technology, natural plant-based ingredients. And one of the key variables any brand we're ever going to work with is absolute raving fans of customers. What's been really exciting is most of the franchisees up until today have been referrals, organics that loved the category or loved Go Glow even before we started franchising, and found out about us in various different ways. So Go Glow is really a unique disruptor, and we're attracting some extremely high caliber franchise partners in the beauty category, single service, simple, scalable, fantastic margins.
That was 59 seconds. Good job keeping it under 60.
Yeah, you're welcome. 32 seconds.
I'm amazed at the caliber of franchisee that is attracting. Some of the best franchisees with some of the most respected franchise brands out there are inquiring and buying at GoGlow. So, all right, another brand. We got 2 more brands. Same thing on Magnolia Soap and Bath.
Yeah, and so Magnolia Soap and Bath, we're taking the mundane of, again, kind of skincare routine, but in the bath and shower and cleaning products, and we're just bringing some joy. We are locally handcrafted, so we make 90% plus of our products in store. So they're made from clean, plant-based, non-harsh or no chemicals in any of our products, and we're locally making those in store. So there's that local handcrafted feel, clean ingredients. And we call it the Southern charm, but it's great customer service. We like to think, if you're making the comparison with food, we want to be the Chick-fil-A of retail. A line around the building and people that not only love the product, but love the service as well. And that brand, and we've talked about this, the Net Promoter Score. I think that's something important for everybody to ask about a franchisor is what do the customers think about the franchisor? And basically, they're the highest Net Promoter Score I've ever seen in my 17, 18 years of franchising. Of almost 93% of their customers are promoters. So raving fans, again, really great. This works in every market, whether you're in Chicago, we're in towns of 4, 5, 10,000 people as well. It's a community-based business, but we're getting a ton of traction there. A lot of multi-unit buyers coming on board, and it's just very simple and scalable. And brick and mortar, you can get open very quickly.
I love the labor model there. I love the passionate customers. I love how people enjoy working there. And I love when Megan posts a new grand opening, there's always like a line around the corner and snaking around different things because it's so many people want to get in there. All right. Hawaii Fluid Art. That's our
HFA,
third brand.
Hawaii Fluid Art. This is the Aloha spirit. And it is truly, again, what you're noticing with all of our brands is we have this experiential element. And so this is, when you think of your traditional like painting parties, this is something completely unique where anybody can come in. You don't use a brush. You can come in and make beautiful art. It's almost like a therapeutic type of experience, but they have just been going gangbusters on growth and not only awarding these locations, but getting them open. Like that's the important part. They do bring a lot of the resources that we typically help franchisors outsource. They've already got a lot of those internal, which is they're just ahead of the curve when it comes to real estate construction. We've all met their internal team. And it's just a really unique business model where you can drive revenue both inside and outside of the 4 walls as well, which is just a disruptor in that category. But they're really taking what people know about, a lot of these painting type of concepts, but really spinning it and twisting it on its head and creating a unique business model with insane margins, very, executive level type ownership for those that have been doing it. Even our founder, she owns a location in Hawaii, right? So she lives in the States. So it's just a really cool concept. And they've got a lot of great stores. They were just featured on, I think, a 5 or 6 minute segment on one of the national media news channels. So they're getting a ton of publicity, but most importantly, they're getting the locations open. I think they started the year at like 30 locations. They're going to have 75 to 100 open by the end of the year. So that's one that's definitely on the radar of up and coming. Yeah.
What I appreciate is all of our founders are great. I love Maya over there at Hawaii Fluid Art. And I appreciate the fact that she had success in one location and then wanted to prove that success in another location in a different state. And that's not easy to do when you think you got lightning in a bottle. Let's just run with it. But she was patient to do that and to prove it out. And I think that's why she's having that growth that she's having over there. So if you have a brand out there, we'd love for you to be our 4th or 5th or 6th portfolio brand over at Front Street. Just reach out to us. If you want to check out any of those brands, just go directly to the website and check them out. But that brings me to founders. Founders, like with all of these brands, we look at the founders. And as I listen to some of these investing podcasts, and Justin Donald, he's my business partner over at the Tribe of Investors, and talk to high level business people that are buying big businesses. They always talk and investing in them. They're always talking about the jockey. And that's something that is incredibly important to us at Front Street is we are looking at the horse, the model, the business, the industry, but if that jockey isn't amazing, it's a no for us. So as these buyers are out there, how important is the jockey to them? With this little caveat, they're probably not going to be there forever. They're probably there and then gone, because they're probably going to get it bought out by private equity at some point. So how do you deal with that? What should a buyer be thinking about?
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever
that's a
asked you
great
that
point.
question. I don't think I've ever answered that
No.
question before. So
I like it. That's a good one.
You're on the hot seat.
Who fed you that? Who fed you that? No, that's a good one. That's a really good one. I like, I'm a Chiefs, go Chiefs, Super Bowl coming up this weekend. I'm a Chiefs fan, and they like to say in football, it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and Joes. The same exact concept. It's not just about the model, but it's about the person who's executing the model. The franchisee makes the market. In a lot of cases, for an emerging brand, I think it's much more important than an established brand that might have a couple hundred units. And what is that owner or that founder's involvement today? Are they a figurehead, or have they hired a brand president to kind of run the operational? Because you'll notice, and we've seen this before with other concepts, that eventually most franchisors, the franchise will outgrow the founder in some way, shape, or form. And then you've got to bring in people that have operated at several hundred units and scaled it to several thousand. There's just a different skill set, and some founders are able to make that leap and others can't. So I think for an emerging brand, you're buying into the founder. Yes, the model is important, but just as important as the model is the founder. So make sure you align, understand their driving factors. Do they have a lot of other businesses going on? Is this their only sole focus? Do they seem very responsive? Are people chasing them down for responses all the time? So do they seem like they're running with their hair cut off, or have they hired and developed a team? So early on, it's very important. Now, I think there's a lot of benefits of being almost a superpower, of being an emerging franchisee with a concept, because you're the people that walked uphill both ways to school in the snow. And that's the system I was a part of. We were one of the first franchisees, and I am so grateful that we weren't franchisee number 200, because I saw a lot of those people lack the resourcefulness. They had the resources, but they weren't resourceful. We had to be resourceful early on. So to me, I love emerging concepts because it brings me back to being gritty, the building stage. And if somebody wants something that's more of a plug and play, maybe it's a couple hundred units, maybe it's 1,000 of units, maybe there's a brand president, maybe there's already been a private equity acquisition, and maybe there's another group that they've merged with, and the founder isn't really the strategic leader of the business anymore. I'm very less worried about that one if I'm joining that system, because the model's been proven out significantly more. But I want someone, just like we look for in franchisee, someone that's gritty, a founder that's gritty, they're hungry, they want to bring it each and every day, and they're going to be in the trenches, because early on, that's the value of an emerging brand, is you get access to those founders. And I still talk to a lot of founders that, had I joined the system later, I would have never had the access to. So even if just as mentors, or even when they're looking at investing in other brands, just having that access is huge to me. So yes, it is important earlier on. But if there's some proof in the concept, again, you're betting on the jockey. However, who are the other team members that are supporting that horse and supporting that jockey? Like, how strong are they? Because, if it's just the founder and there's not a strong team around it, I'm always concerned. If it's a really, really strong team and not as strong of a founder, I'm still concerned, but for different reasons. And again, really the maturity stage of the bell curve of that franchise organization, if there are 2 locations versus 200, my concern about asking the franchisor, and I would ask them, we have it asked all the time, what's your strategy? Our founders are asked, do you plan on exiting anytime soon? And any founder that tells you, no, we'll never do that, either really loves their business or they're lying, because everyone has a price if you put enough commas and zeros. But realistically, most of these brands need to get to several hundred units open before at least we would ever advise anyone to even consider something like that.
So that was a great answer, I think. And my quick 2 cents on that, because I know you got a hard stop here, Bobby, and I'll get you out of here in time. Don't you worry, I got your back.
Good.
But I got the book, Rocket Fuel, right here. I think any brand that we talk to at Front Street, I was talking to Jeff about this the other day, I want them to read and understand Rocket Fuel, understand that role between the integrator and the visionary, and understand where they are in that process. So I think if I'm a buyer out there, I would read Rocket Fuel, and I would want to understand, is that founder an integrator or a visionary? Most likely they're visionaries to get to where they are. And it goes into your point, if they're a visionary founder, do they understand that they probably need that second in command, that is that integrator, that COO? and they might not have them right now. And that's okay if they don't have them right now, but do they recognize the need for them? And is that in the plan for them to get that integrator? Just like it is, these founders the brand will probably outgrow that founder at some point. And that's okay as well. And that's when private equity might come in. The founder might stay with them for a little bit. They might not. But that's as that brand grows and matures, they need a different level of talent that comes in. And that founder might hire that talent, or they might sell to a group that has that talent already ready for them. So I think that founder are they amazing? And are they that jockey that can get that brand from 0 units to 100 to 200 units? And then what is their mindset once that business might outgrow them? So I'd probably have the series of questions along those lines. Like, what's your role now? How do you see that changing as you get to 100 to 200 units? And when do you think this might outgrow you? Last thing, Bobby.
One thing I would add to that, Eric,
go ahead.
I think it's really important that you kind of hit on this as well too. But like our founders, and one of the things we liked about them is they recognize that they didn't know it all. Like, does the founder have an ego? And to your point, do they recognize I need somebody else? I might be the visionary, or maybe they are the implementer and they need more of a strategic visionary. But like, do they have an ego, or can they put that ego aside? Because a lot of founders, they got to where they were because they had a strong ego. They've been this successful, but are they willing to maybe take a step back and recognize I don't know it all. I can't do it all by myself. That's a huge piece of us coming involved, because when we come involved, we want some of the authority. We want some of the responsibility along with that too. So it's so important that they recognize that.
So last comment, I think I would be, as a buyer, I would be looking at an exit strategy. And I just had somebody on the franchisee mastermind, which is $200 a month to month, franchisee mastermind. And I had somebody come in with the initials of MS. I think you might know who that is. And they raise money to buy a brand. We won't talk about that brand either, Bobby. Let's not talk about that brand, because they don't need any more franchisees. But he had inside information, not illegal, inside information. And then he raised money with a business partner to buy a large market. And some of I'm looking at my notes right now, their plan, they raised the full amount to develop a full market. And their plan is to return investors an 18% IRR, internal rate of return, within 5 to 7 years. And that includes an exit, and the exit's at a 3x multiple, which most businesses go closer to 4x multiple, but they figured that in. So anyway, the point of that is they have an exit plan. They gave my mastermind the playbook on how to raise capital from outside investors, but they have an exit plan. I would go into it with an exit plan, and then you can always adjust along the way. Bobby, you got one minute. Any words of wisdom before I kick you off to go do your next thing?
No, I think you kind of nailed it there. Start with the end in mind, and whatever you're doing, start with why. So if you're going through the process, it's going to be scary. Manage the fear, manage your expectations. Don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. Talk to franchisees, talk to the leadership team. This is probably the largest investment most people will make. So be a driver, don't be a passenger in the process.
Boom.
Mic drop.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.